Okay. So, right, in this video I'm going to respond to a comment. I've just randomly selected one of the comments on the last video, but all of the comments are excellent because they're all talking about the commenters are talking about or describing their immediate experience with this inquiry. And the funny thing about it is that all the different versions of this, of these descriptions of experience, are all like reiterations, like slightly different reiterations of the same thought function. That thought function being the subject-object dichotomy in mind, in thought. And obviously for different people that takes different forms based on that individual's conditioning. So it will present seemingly different challenges, but if we really pay attention to what's going on, they're all based off of the same fundamental assumption. So here's one I chose, and this is from Full Stop. And it says, "Hi David, great pointers. I've noticed that when I inquire towards the self, how this feeling of me, that I'm right here, right now, is very blurry, hard to pin down and locate. When I feel towards it, there's some body reaction in the chest and the throat, contraction of sorts. Maybe a light fear response or feeling startled, if that makes any sense. Conceptually, I understand that it's probably because nothing's there to begin with. This type of thought theme, where I think I understand what's going on, is very persistent and safe. So when you were saying in this video, what you were saying in this video fit well into what I'm trying to sort through. Do you have any ideas that I could explore just to continue to feel?" So yeah, you're right. When you look, so there is this assumption that we are running off, and the assumption is generated by the felt real experience of the separate me at the center of experience as the thinker, the one subject to my thoughts, is made to feel real through this constant reinforcement in the objective thoughts, the thought experience, or the content of those thoughts. When we look for the self in the space of mind, let's say, it's not there, we don't find it, and the more we look, the more elusive it becomes, and it can be kind of unsettling because this real experience of self that we use to relate to the world, that we've relied on to give us a, albeit false, sense of predictability and security, like the commenter here mentioned, safety. When we start to see that that's not there, it can be, like you said, startling. It can be disconcerting or destabilizing. The more we look for it, we don't find it, and the sense of self, the mind doesn't like that. So it will look for a conclusion. It will look for something objective that it can pinpoint and say, there, that's it. It doesn't find that. With awakening, it doesn't find that either, which is what's so weird about it. So we look for it, and all we find is thought experience. All we find are the objective thoughts. And the more we look for that, the more it clarifies that central separate subject just isn't there. There's something else that's here, but in the way that it was assumed and suggested, It's just not there. We don't find it. What we find is an assumption that's constantly reinforced through just the context of the way the thoughts are talking, the way the thoughts are suggesting. Context is a very good word for this. It's suggested and assumed in the context of the objective thoughts. So we're looking back for the source of experience, the source of awareness. And we don't find that as any sort of objective thing. We find the object of the self spoken about in thought. But when we look for it as an actual thing, we don't find it. In thought, I'm talking about in mind. So the inquiry leads to this question mark, and we don't find any sort of material self, any sort of like objectifiable, real subject, but we do find a kind of ongoingness of an experience or an awareness, an ongoing knowingness, an ongoing presence, an ongoing experiencing and awareness. And as the kind of aperture of experience dilates out from this constantly focused on thought objective narrative, the whole illusion starts to kind of come into a different kind of focus, or you could say like a different kind of perspective. So like everyone who commented in this video, it's clear to me that we're all inquiring in that way. We're all honestly and curiously looking back to see like what is going on here. What is this me? What is this sense of me that I've just taken for granted, and it's become so. There's something not right about it. It's become so uncomfortable, or it's not satisfying living that way. So rather than looking for a theoretical or objective answer as an object of thought or an object of focus in mind or out there in the world, we're turning it back in, and we're looking at the sense of the self that seems to be at the centre of this whole thing. So the more you look for it, the less you find it. What you find is just a context, an assumption. And the more we do that, the more we kind of break that habituated and automatic circuit that's rolling on through habit force that seems so automatic. And with inquiry, we're not. What we're also noticing are like the hidden thoughts, the ones that really like, feel like a part of identity. So it'll be things like doubt and belief. All the doubt and belief, it appears as the same thought function. It appears within the same context, the context of the assumed subject. So these thoughts are only really relevant with belief and with reality. They're only really relevant within that thought function, within that assumption, the context of subject and object in mind. The context of me relating to my thought experience as the one observing it, controlling it, separate from it in some sort of way. So this is all about changing the, how would you say this? It's a kind of change in focus. So the focus before was on the content of the thoughts, like what they're talking about as a kind of real reality, and it's usually going to be framed in subjectivity, and it's going to be framed in time, past and future. What we're doing with the inquiry is we're looking right now at the thought experience. So like I always talk about, we're kind of switching the focus from what the thoughts are talking about, and we're actually looking directly right now at the experience, the direct experience of the thoughts. Like, what is the thought experience? And in that, we start to notice some things. We start to pull to the forefront of our experience these assumptions, and we're directly questioning them. The main assumption being that I am me, I am separate. I am the one in the centre of my experience, in control of my thought experience, struggling with thoughts as the subject. So then I noticed about all the comments as well, that which is good, that the type of thoughts start to change. So what the thoughts are talking about start to become kind of more immediate, a bit more existential. So rather than talking about how would I describe this? Rather than talking about, like, you know, past and future, or something that's just clearly not here, or something that's just clearly conceptual and all up in the mind and just not this, it starts to become more immediate. So things like a narrative of what's going on right now. So like, you know, a lot of people have the experience of waiting for awakening. So they're narrating their experience, they're monitoring and noticing things, and you get the thoughts that are based off those noticings, and it'll be like, oh, is it happening yet? Is awakening happening yet? it's just about to happen. Oh no, I lost it. Type thing. So that's already a shift in the in the kind of, is it a shift in the content that comes about due to the change in focus from in some way, from the fully identified content of thought to the actual thought experience itself in some way, in immediacy. So then, like, a good inquiry will often make us feel kind of uncomfortable or urgent in a way. There'll be like an urgency there, and a kind of need to be able to pin something down, pinpoint something, and be able to point to it in an objective way from that subjective position as the thinker, and say, okay, that's this, that's it, I understand that. Now what else can I understand? And like this commenter's saying, you know, you can't do that with this. We're breaking that habitual pattern of relating to our experience, from the position of the subject, from the assumed position of something separate in it, somehow separate from it. So good inquiry will basically like stall the mind. And that's the idea behind koans, if that's how you pronounce it. It stalls the mind. It doesn't give the mind anything to grab onto or wrestle with. So it kind of creates a gap there. It creates a kind of dumbfounding of the mind in which there's an opening, and the opening, in that opening, shines through what starts to notice itself as awareness, as experience, as what we actually are. A lot of people will call that like the sense of I am, or awareness without an object, or awareness without separateness, or awareness of awareness, or knowing of knowing. We might call it the self-aware, the inherent self-aware nature of experience. And that we start to feel and have direct experience with experience or existence or reality that doesn't have without the need to confirm in thought or with a thought, without the need to notice from a position. So we start to see that we don't need these thoughts. We don't need to relate to our experience from a separate position for experience to inherently know itself. And that's what people would refer to as the I am sense. So this thought function calms down with effective inquiry. And if we do this enough and with enough intention and curiosity, it starts to become clear that this experience is inherently wide awake, completely, brightly, luminously self-aware. And there doesn't need to be a movement of mind for that to be clear, like absolutely clear beyond a doubt. This sense of pure aliveness, awareness, knowingness, existence, without the need to objectify that as a personal experience. So what the mind does is it moves around to kind of capture or take like a snapshot of things and memorize them and hold on to them and try and understand them in a limited way. What we're talking about here is self-confirming. It doesn't need to be confirmed from any position in mind, any position at all. It's infinite, unlimited, unbound by concepts or definitions. And that's just inherently what this is. And it's self-confirming. It doesn't need to be confirmed. In that way, it's beyond doubt. What gives rise to the experience of doubt appears within it and is made of it. What gives rise to the experience of confusion or frustration, or the need to know, all of those thoughts, all of those, they may come with sensations or emotions, all of that appears as this awareness, as this awake, present knowingness. So no movement of mind can come close to or touch this. But it doesn't exclude any movement of mind, because all the thoughts, anything in your experiences is made of this. So anything in your experience is what you are, essentially, in a kind of impersonal yet more intimate than personal way. Let me just have another look at that comment here. Yeah. So the illusion is generated in thought, it's generated in mind, and the key with this is this function in mind, this context or assumption that gives rise to the felt to be real experience of the always here separate subject, the thinker, the one that's in control of thoughts, the one that relates to thoughts as something separate from them. The more we attune to the direct experience of thought, the more these functions or these assumptions start to clarify for what they are, and what they are is just thoughts. So there isn't a real subject-object experience in mind. That's the illusion. All there is thought. There isn't a real subject or thinker that we see through and then lose. It was never there in the first place. All there was a thought experience. And that thought experience always appears as one thought. It's not even one thought, it's just one thought experience now. It's not even a series of thoughts in a linear time narrative. So there's something paradoxical about this that's difficult to explain. And that's that when this awakening comes about, like when we, I think I mentioned this in the reply, when we start to talk about this in language, it's always gonna seem like to the mind that we're talking about an event that happens. That's why we wait for it to happen. We wait for something to change. Because that subject in mind can only view things in time and from the position of that subject as a thought object, as an objective experience. Though that's not what the awakening is. When the awakening clarifies, it doesn't clarify for you in the sense of the thinker, the separate me. It's not something that you can confirm with a thought as awakening. You could almost say it's like transcendent of or before that. The awakeness is always confirming itself inherently and infinitely right now. This thought function dies down such that can become clear in experience. And the self-aware and inherently awake nature of experience becomes clear to itself without any sort of illusory obstruction, seeming to obscure it. And it's clear that all of it, even when we were lost in identified thoughts, all of it was pure awakeness, pure completeness, pure wholeness. There was never an identified character there in the first place. So of course that identified character doesn't need to confirm an awakening. What can happen is that, a narrative will come in to describe what happened, but it doesn't have to. And when that narrative comes in to describe what happened, it's clear then what it is, let's say post-awakening. And there's a flaw in that language anyway. It's clear what it is, and it's just thoughts. But the thoughts are made of what was realised, or what realises itself. And what realises itself was always clearly awake, was always clearly self-aware. It was never really obscured. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to look. That doesn't mean that we don't have to inquire. Because there is this strange thing going on, this strange illusion that certainly feels real until it's seen for what it is, or it becomes clear like what's happening there. When it becomes clear what's happening there, it also becomes clear that none of that happened. None of that actually happened in any real way. Because what's realised, the true nature, so to speak, is completely transcendent of time. It's only now. So this doesn't play out in a time narrative. It's always now. So anything that's kind of enticing, any kind of narrative that's pulling you into a narrative about time, or subjectivity, how I relate to my experience, how does this fit in a linear progression? That's all just part of the illusion. That's all just one thought that's appearing now. It is an incredible illusion, because that one thought experience has the power to ignore all the gaps turn a blind eye to all the points that this felt to be always here sense of me wasn't present in experience, then it just assumes, it suggests and assumes that it's always been here and it's here right now. But when we actually look, we don't find it. And it never actually happened. It's all just generated in one thought experience that happens now. So when we realise our true nature, in a sense, it's like an exit to time into what's here, what's already and always has been here, completely transcendent of time. And in that, none of the character ever happened. Memories about it can appear as a thought experience, but that only ever appears right now as one thought experience. So this can become really singular. So singular that we exit the entire narrative altogether into just this, just what's here. And what's here, what you truly are, is already wide awake, already inherently self-aware, such that there doesn't need to be a movement of mind to confirm that. We don't have to stand back from the experience and categorize it as awake or unawake. It's always awakeness. It's always self-aware, present knowingness. So it's a massive relief, it's a massive weight off the shoulders, because we see that all the struggle that we were having, the narrative about getting this and losing it, that never happened. Never happened. So we can find ways to bring ourselves back to, let's say, bad way to describe it, but we can find an inquiry that kind of clicks for us, that kind of brings us into contact with the direct experience of thought. So like, what will be the next thought? So now we're present, attentive, waiting for the next movement of mind appearing right now in immediacy. Or we can ask, what am I that is aware of my experience? What am I that's aware of my thought experience? What will be the next thought? Or we can ask, where am I in the thought experience? Where is the me in the thought experience? Can we turn back and look for it? Can we turn back and look for what I am? Is that possible? So there'll be a change in the quality of experience when we ask these questions or have that intention there. And that it brings us into immediacy. It brings us into direct contact with what this actually is, what we actually are, which isn't anything that can ever be objectively known, because we're talking about the subject here. We can even ask, like, what is it that doesn't change about experience? What am I that's always here? Any of these, if these are particularly potent inquiries, can be effective. And then when we get a a glimpse, or when we get a taste of this immediate aliveness, this present aware knowingness. Now, these are all just words; they don't come anywhere near to capturing what I'm talking about. But when we can notice, let's say, notice that in experience, or relax the movement of the objective mind in experience such that it becomes clear in immediacy in experience, then that's all we need. Because we're in direct contact with our true nature. And it's clear in experience, we know that. And there might be times where we get lost in identified thoughts and it seems like it's obscured or something like that. But whenever that recognition comes out the blue, and the clarity about what I'm talking about, the clarity and immediacy, it's there and we can feel it. It knows itself. Then we just continue to orient towards that as the most important thing, as the most real thing. Anyway, I'm going to go and get my dinner now, but that'll do for now, and I'll talk to you next time.